forget to. Super. We'll get started here in just a second. I think we have someone from every team. Is that true? Almost. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, I think I put you guys over where I can see you. Just go ahead and keep your microphones on and chime in at any time, because sometimes when I have things on the screen, I don't see the chat window or you're raising your hand. So just chime in. It's like we can be informal about this. Hey, Sean. Okay, let's see if I can share my screen and we'll get ourselves going. So we got the recording going there. Let me share. Where'd it go? Share. There, share screen. Like, yeah, 2 years later now, I'm still not very good at using Zoom. Okay, I think you guys are all, can you see my screen? It should look like just a Windows
perfect.
desktop. Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started, just out of respect for your guys' time. Thank you for joining us on this holiday in the US. We are gathering today to kind of talk about Assemble, which is kind of a newer piece of software that we have available to us that we wanted to share about and kind of show you how some of the capabilities work and how hopefully they can be integrated into your workflow to just really improve your workflows for the construction management side of things. It's a tool that's really, really good for just in models, helping pull quantities out of models and then classifying the elements that you're pulling out of the models into a cost breakdown structure. So for CMs who are kind of responsible for putting together a quick estimate of things, it's actually very, very good for that. It's also really very good for keeping track of changes between different versions. And I empathize with you all as the designers kind of continue to improve their models and change things on a daily basis. It's hard to keep up with things, but you'll see that Assemble has some tools that will hopefully make that a little bit easier for you to kind of keep up with them. So it's good for that. It's also good for a little bit of construction planning. You're going to find that really what Assemble is at a high level is it's kind of like just a data management system that rides on top of Revit, where we can pull in the Revit data, but we can also associate some other columns that then give us more spreadsheet-like capabilities for summarizing the data in different ways. And what we're going to do, you can kind of stop at just using Assemble for what it is internally, or you can use it as kind of a bridge to other technologies. Like I think some of you are using Power BI and trying to put together some dashboards that kind of summarize the data and the number of conflicts and issues and stuff like that. And it can act as a bridge in that way too, just kind of between different technologies. But let's go ahead and get ourselves started. Actually, before we do, are there any particular points that you guys want to see? My general plan is to kind of show you how we pull in models, we associate some cost data, we kind of handle some updates that might have come from the model and see how that all flows together into Assemble, and then you can ultimately just kind of pull out and track that information. But are there other things, anything else that you guys want to see?
Glenn, I do have something that I'm hoping we can touch on at some point. I've been messing with Assemble a little bit, and I've noticed that when I pull things in from Revit, among the element characteristics that show up in the different columns, there is a column for assembly code. And some items seem to have a code, others have it blank, most have it blank. Looking into it a little bit further, I've come to the realization that that Assemble code matches the codes in RS means data. It's the uniformat code. Yeah. And I'm curious if you can help us understand why some elements in the Revit libraries have this code associated to them, others don't, because I'm wondering if there's a way to automate the workflow. If we have that code, it makes, everything, we can use that in Assemble and pass that on to wherever it is that we're doing our cost estimating. I was wondering if that's a flow that you've seen or how we can make that work.
Yeah, that was actually what I was exploring right before we got online, is really the best way to use that. And we'll look at that explicitly, where that comes from and where to manage that. At a high level, just as a preview of what's going on, the recommendation seems to be to manage that code and the assignment of that code in Assemble itself. Okay, and then from there, take it into whether it's Timberline or whatever system you want to take, you're doing your estimating in, as opposed to trying to manage it in Revit. Because I tell you, pulling it directly from Revit, it doesn't always match. In fact, it's typically blank in terms of what's going on there, and it doesn't push back. So again, we'll look at a workflow that I think will work for you for doing that. But I think at a high level, we'll talk very explicitly about that. I think the best thing to do is for you to manage that in Assemble as opposed to trying to push it back into Revit. Okay, but let's take a look at that, because that's a good one to it's really kind of the heart of a lot of what's going to make this work or not work very well. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Revit as a starting point. In terms of what I'm pulling into today's model, actually, if you guys want to even follow along, you'll see when we get over to Assemble, well, I'll show you in there. These are the models that I've sort of imported right now. These are the ones that you looked at for the testing when you were setting up your project. So I have a little architectural model here of a 3-story building and its corresponding structural model. Okay, so at a high level, there's nothing you have to do in Revit really to make this work. Okay, so at a high level, Revit, it's just going to hang it around in here. Your teammates are going to keep on updating their models. And then the important thing is, like many different things working with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, there's the notion of as you sync locally versus when you publish, that really publishing is the key step that actually pushes things forward in Autodesk Construction Cloud, whether it's going to model coordination for the clash detection, or in this case, going to push an update to Assemble. So the big thing is, as you're working day in and day out, most people will just be syncing. But then when you want to have a version published that moves forward, okay, you want to either do it here with managed cloud models, and we'll do this again in just a little bit. I'll go to that project. And I've created a couple different ones in here. It's this whole, publish the latest version. Okay, so once you get that set up though, and you do that, the rest of the workflow is pretty automatic in terms of coming in. We'll show you how that works when we sort of get over to Assemble. So start out here, just kind of working in Revit. When we get over to Assemble, and if you haven't been there yet, I recommend you head on over there. I'm going to go over to the Assemble interface. When you head on over there, and we go out to the main level, okay, we have this global AEC testing project. I've added all you to that project. So if you want to follow along, please do. Okay, or you have your individual projects. And thanks to Shun, okay, who pointed out that we needed to go ahead and make you administrators so that we could basically have you kind of edit the cost table, okay, underneath everything. I've changed you all to administrators on your projects. Okay, so you'll have the ability to kind of make any changes like the ones we're looking at today. Okay, so I'm going to come on over to this little project, the Global AC Testing Project. We'll take a look at what's happening out there. I've been playing around this morning with just a testing version of it, but I'm going to start over again with just the ARC model and the structural model. When we want to add models, the thing to do is, as opposed to sort of going to Assemble and publishing from that side, since you have the model saved on the Autodesk Construction Cloud, it's just sort of pull them from that, because that'll give you the most automatic workflow. So if I say that I want to add or update models, it'll take you to the Construction Cloud. You go over the Cloud Revit models and just kind of choose the ones that you want to import. You can sort of see there's the version numbers. Okay, and I have already imported these latest ones. Later on, after we make some changes in Revit, it'll show that there's our updates that are available, and we can pull them forward. Okay, but you pretty much choose them in here and you say next, and it'll bring them in. Now, as you bring them in, it takes, seems like I'd say 5 to 8 minutes for it to do its processing in the background. So don't be alarmed by that. That's just kind of working along in the background, but it seems like it works pretty successfully. And when you get done, you end up with models that look like this. Okay, Now, for these models, we can choose to open individual models, or we can open kind of a merged model if we want to. To open an individual model, I would just kind of, for example, open the architectural model. And you get this view. So let's talk about what's happening in this view. That part over on the left-hand side is called the inventory. So that's really just the quantities pulled out of the model. That thing over on the right side is just the 3D view of the model right now. And there's some other options over here that we're going to turn on in a little bit, okay, for showing more detailed properties. So as we go through and look at this, all these different elements are currently grouped by category, so the Revit category. We can group them other ways, by level or by phase created, or we can set up some other things. For example, we could group them by the uniformat code if that's assigned. Okay, but I think category is probably the easiest one for you to work with. You could also sort of expand this little model tree if you want to. But the idea is you want to create a view for yourself that will really kind of help you with your estimating task. Okay, so as you're thinking about the level of estimating you're doing now, there may be some things that you're concerned about, maybe some things that you aren't so concerned about. Okay, and we want to basically, just kind of choose the ones that we really want to see. Right now, I'm only looking at the architectural model. If I wanted to look at the structural model too, I could turn that on. And then the structural elements are in there too, and it's all integrated into one big group. But if I, for example, just really want to focus on like the walls as a starting point, for example, I could just go ahead and choose the walls. Notice they're all in blue, that's very similar to, like when we're using, it used to be Navisworks worked like that. A number of different tools work like that, where you can sort of hide or show different things. And then I could say if I want to like hide the others, and then I can just focus on those specific elements. Okay, but really what we're going to do is just create different views of the data that help you get your job done. Okay, and then based on that, just kind of work with them. But as we shake things off, kind of keep track of what we've taken off and haven't taken off, so that that information carries between the different views. So let me just change these visibility settings back again. Visibility settings, model tree. Okay, and then what do I want to do here? I'll show all. I'm bad at this. Show changes. I'll just chain them all back on again. Hang on, I'm looking at that. Change visibility. Rule unhide. Okay, everything's back now. Okay, so the idea is, as we're working, if we want to create a view because we want to sort of show something or don't want to show something, for example, let me see what's under my generic models right now. Look at the elevator. Maybe I want to keep that. Maybe at this early stage, I'm going to just take out the railings. I'm going to take out, what else did I take out here? Actually, it looks like I have the joint model right now. I don't need the mullions right now. I'll take those out right now. For example, I can hide those. Okay. What that's going to do is just limit the data a little bit. It's going to make it a little bit easier to kind of focus on things that you care about or don't care about at a specific time. After you've kind of set up these, it's similar to visibility graphics for a specific view. What you can do is come up here and say save. Okay, and I'm just going to call it my, click on that. And when you save a view, a couple of different things are going to be saved. The kind of filtering that you've applied is going to be saved. Okay, any columns that you've added are also going to be saved. And we're going to use that in just a second here to kind of add some columns to this. So for example, right now you'll see it's summarized things. For example, under walls, we have about 32,000 square feet of walls. And then we have walls by different types. Okay, and then as we move on over, we can sort of see what the number of walls is, the total square footage of the walls is, the volume, all those things. But it really kind of comes down to this issue of really how do we want to quantify those things for putting together the estimate. Okay, so we are going to go through and choose for each of those different categories. In this case, the quantity is square footage. Okay, so that would be based on area. What we're going to do is we're going to add a couple columns to this. Okay, so you notice there isn't a cost column right now. Okay, there's not a unit cost or a total cost column. So we're going to go ahead and add those columns into this view. Now, those fields are going to exist for all the elements, whether they're in this view or not, but we're just displaying them here. Okay, so I'm going to go to columns and say, let me go to cost. I'll add in the unit cost, and I'll add in cost, and I'll add in the total cost. And it's right now going to just put them over on the far right-hand side. Say done to that. So if I go zipping on over, okay, they're currently hanging around looking blank right now, and that's kind of okay. We haven't associated any assembly codes with them, so it doesn't yet have any information in there to go ahead and compute, but we'll do that in just a little bit. Okay, but if I like this view and I want to save these columns, I'm going to save the view again. Just so when I come in next time, I don't have to go through and kind of do that over again. Okay, so that'll get us started in terms of what's going on here. Hang on, I'm going to look at something over here. Super. Okay. We can also set up rules if we want to kind of control the visibility. So for example, if I come on over and let me choose something over here, I can create rules. So for example, I can say show only and show only, or hide. So a category name, a type name. So if I want to show just the floor elements or something like that, I create a rule and do that, and just kind of also make these different criteria for doing it's like visibility graphics. You can do that, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to leave them all kind of hanging around in there. Okay, super, blah blah blah. Okay. And then we can actually go through and in our model over here, do some colorizing of it too. So let's talk about that, because again, that would be saved. This model, which right now has all the information, can get to be a little bit overwhelming. So if you want to, you can sort of color code it by some properties.
Glenn, sorry to interrupt real quick.
Yeah.
I think you have a panel open in the middle of the screen. It doesn't show us what it is, but could you minimize that? Is that okay?
Sure. I think it's you guys. Okay,
oh,
there
I
we
see.
go.
Yeah,
No
thank
worries.
you.
Is that better?
Yep, thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, it blocks that out. Okay, so we can color code the different elements. Okay, this right now is color coding by the type of element. Again, that's okay. You can sort of see the colors are associated here. But again, we can categorize it different ways, really, by any of these things. We can color code it by level. We can color it by assembly code. We can color code it by really whatever we want to kind of color code it by. Okay, including different categories that we might want to create. Right, so for example, let me just color code them by level. Okay, so that's just sort of sorting out the things that are considered on level 1 versus level 2 versus level 3. Okay. I'm going to actually recommend that you create some fields to kind of track your work, just to help you. Okay, and we can do that by kind of editing some project data. So we're going to, given that we have all this just information kind of coming in right now, it's actually looking like it's not too bad. Actually, if you compared to sort of the task of what a quantity estimator typically has to do, it isn't bad at all that it's basically kind of pulled all these quantities out for you. Okay. Again, it's only as accurate as the model is accurate. Okay, so that's always a kind of a caveat you have to kind of factor into this, but it does a pretty good job of just really eliminating some of the grunt work from that. So hopefully, that'll be of benefit. Let me close that up over here. But what I want to show you is really, okay, given that we have this data coming raw out of kind of the Revit model, things that we can do to it. So one thing that we would certainly like to do to it is, as Santiago suggested, is associate some assembly codes or some costs with the different items so that we can take these quantities and multiply them by unit costs and get sort of a total cost. Okay, and yeah, there's that question about the best way to do that, but we'll explore that. We could also create some other fields that might be useful to you. I'm going to add a field in here for just kind of our takeoff status, whether or not we've counted for it yet or not. But you could put in all sorts of information if you're trying to do construction planning about, what construction activity it might be associated with, what, pour sequence number it might be, part of. After you, start playing around with Alice, you might kind of decide to kind of break elements across, kind of different activities just based on region or something like that. So, any of that information can be summarized and pulled together. So just in your thinking about Assemble, what Assemble is trying to position itself is kind of a superset of the BIM data. The BIM data is in here, but there's other data you can add in to help, kind of manage here at this level and then export to Excel or some other tool, as opposed to trying to put it all in as custom properties within Revit. So it's trying to sort of be a little bit of a superset of all that. But where you get to all that is as follows. I'm going to go back out of this individual view of the project. Okay, this is the project level right now, and here's a couple different views that we've created. Okay, and we're actually going to edit the project. So this is the part that Shun kind of pointed out we need to give you guys access to. It should be there for you guys, where there's a couple kind of good things happening here. We're going to take a look at data trees in just a second. That's going to be the part where we actually put together our cost breakdown structure and map our assembly codes to unit costs. Then over here, there's something called assemble properties, and assemble properties is really just a series of different fields we can add in. So for example, if I want to create a new property, I'll call it just takeoff status. Make it a text field. I can. And now it's available for me. I can now put that into the table if I want to use that as something to help me keep track of whether I've taken something off or not. So you can add as many different fields as you want in there. The data trees is where it gets really interesting though. So let's talk about that, because that's where I think a lot of you will spend your time just trying to build out a cost breakout structure. And if you look at the data trees that are available, you'll sort of see you have different ones. The assemblies code one right now looks like this. So they have, this is, I think, all based on uniformat, but it's substructure, shell, interiors, kind of building its way through. Then under shell, for example, I was looking at exterior walls. So that'd be under exterior enclosure. Then exterior walls, and they have different layers in here for different things. If we go zip it, keep on going down and down and down, you'll eventually get to somewhere I've actually filled in some values. So I did fill in some values as I was playing around, getting ready to kind of meet with you guys to unit costs and really how those unit costs would be associated. For example, these are sort of area costs. Okay, and this is what we want to build out, because what we're going to do in Assemble is we're going to assign these assembly codes to the different types, family types, or however we want to assign them. Okay, and then what will happen is these unit costs will get multiplied against the quantities. So the key to it all really becomes just sort of building out this table. Okay, so let me just pause there for a second and see, let's just kind of gronk that for a little bit. So does the idea sort of building out a table where we have these different codes and then the unit costs, putting it together and associating it, make sense? Okay. The good news is if we do it that way, then everything that gets that code will pick up that cost and it'll all kind of stay consistent and kind of generate things. So what'll happen as we move forward, we can assign these codes to all the elements today. And then later on, if we continue to make changes to the model, what we'll do is we'll look for the things that are different from this and we'll assign those codes to them. I haven't found a way to automatically assign them. Okay. But if we keep on doing it by categories, I think it'll be pretty easy to kind of just update them. Well, I'll show you what that looks like when we get to the updating. So it's all about building this table. Okay, so does that sort of make sense? Okay.
Yes.
So if you can handle building that table, you ask, how do we do it? And it's not an easy way in here, but what we can do is basically export the existing table and then re-import it. Okay, so I can export it to an Excel file, edit it, and then I can re-import it. Okay, so I'll do that again. I'll say export. I'm going to export it to an Excel file. It dropped over here into my downloads folder. Didn't give me much of a choice. There's my assembly costs and unit costs. Okay. So then you can put that wherever you want to put that. Okay, and then you open that up in Excel. And what happens when you open that in Excel, it looks something like this. And I'll pull the window out of there so you guys can see it better. So here's all these codes. Let me kind of maybe pop that up a little bit bigger. Okay, so here are all these codes. And again, this code structure, and as you're working with it, I don't say it's arbitrary, whatever. It has a structure that you can kind of design yourself. You don't need to have all these codes. You can take out codes you don't need. You can add in codes that you need. It really depends on what's going to make the most sense for your project. But for example, if we go on back, A is the kind of high level category. Then there's a subcategory at level 2. Then there's a third level category. And you can see they kind of keep on just building out the numbers so that the entire number includes that first letter, the first 2 digits, the second digits, and then finally, it just breaks it out in levels that way. Okay, but this is just sort of understood as, in this format, to be able to change this, it'll import back into here, just having those levels of hierarchy. Okay, so I would go ahead and start with exporting those so you have a template, and then you can kind of work with it from there. But if you start with theirs, let's just kind of make a couple different changes to it. Like I was playing around with these exterior walls, which are the A2020. They're kind of the 180 category. Let me see if I can find it in here. A shell superstructure. They're the Bs. Actually, you'll spot them because I made some changes to them already. Okay. So there's B 2010 180 and B 2010 185. There's 2 different types of walls. Now, in my building, it's not really exterior studs with stucco. It's really kind of exterior, probably metal studs with EIFS or something like that. So I can adjust those. If I wanted to do something like that, I could. Let's just go ahead and insert a row in here. So B 2010, I'll call it 190. Wall, metal stud, the EIFS. Okay, it's a level 5 because that's where it is in the hierarchy. So emulate this as best you can. Fighting with my caps lock. Okay, it's going to be assigned by area. This is critical. At first, when I used to play around with this, I didn't remember to assign this quantity field, but how to quantify it, so it didn't know what to do. So nothing came across. That's very important, that whether that's a count or an area or kind of a length or something like that, you have to put that in there. Okay, and I'll say this is going to be $120 a square foot. Super. So you go through and create this and kind of build out the table the way you want it. And again, it doesn't have to be a complete at the beginning. You can go ahead and put your first categories in and continue to refine it as you go, and as your kind of design teams give you more and more categories to kind of think about. But when you get all done with that, just go ahead and save it away. So let's pause there for a second and kind of see if that kind of makes sense. So any questions about like kind of creating that table? Big thing for me was just export it and then just get it out to Excel, because it's a lot easier to edit over there than the other way.
Glenn, for column E,
Yes.
the 3 examples we're dealing with, we said area, but if you're adding something else, linear foot or each, is there a specific syntax we need to use so that Assemble recognizes it?
That is a very good question. Let's even kind of play with that and kind of see if we can figure that out. Yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah, it's just really trying to figure out really what the precise syntax is supposed to be. I'm pretty certain if I go over to the quantity and I go to the units here, see if I can kind of get this down in here. Hang on, that's the quantity. I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of these things up here, like area, count, volume, perimeter, length. I think it's going to map it based on those. Again, to be experimented with. Okay, but I am pretty certain that those are going to be the ones that are going to be there. Well, maybe even try something like that. Let's just experiment with that. That's a kind of a good thing. Let's see what we have in here. Like if we went to railings or something like that, that would probably come as a link. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, I hid the railings. Well, those are each. So I think that would be a count. Those are square feet.
Could we try like say the foundations for volume?
Sure. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, so if I go down to structural foundations, that's cubic yards. Okay, we'll try that. Yeah, just being by, so our suspicion is that's going to be by volume. Okay, we'll try that. So we'll come back over and go back to Excel and see if we can put that in there. Okay, so in this table, let's see if we can kind of, oh, that's the wrong one. It's another little sample file that isn't the whole one. Okay, so let's see if we can find where this is over here. Actually, we should look over on the other one and see if we can find that, or foundations. I think it's going to be under superstructure. Let's see if we have that up here in the B category. Floor construction, bearing walls, columns, beams. No. Okay, basement wall foundation, basement walls, basement shoring, basement construction, basement excavation for basements, shoring, basement walls. So what was that we were looking at? It was like a volume of foundations. Okay, I'm just gonna, for the purpose of what we're doing right now, we'll just put it in here as a something or other.
I think slightly further up, yeah, on A, you should be able to find raft foundations. That'll do.
Okay, so do you see raft foundations in there?
You've just scrolled. Oh, there you go. A10 is foundations.
Okay, so we'll go with that. So then we'll say that, for example, our suspicion is that that's going to be volume. Okay, so based if, again, we could come up with a better categorization. It's a little finer. And I'll just put in, let's put in $80 a cubic yard right now. Okay, so we'll start with that. Okay, super. So let's go ahead and we have this. Let's save that away. Okay, we're going to try re-importing this back to Assemble so that we can make the associations over there and confirm that our structure that we edited here in Excel, is readable and understandable in Assemble. Okay, so we're going to go back over there. So the good news is I think you guys will only have to set that up like, well, every time you edit it. And back over here. And we'll edit the project. Pull that window out of the way again. Okay, so if I go to the data trees and I say import, and then I go to the latest changed one, which I believe is that one right there. So we made a couple changes. We made a wall type 190, and we made these substructure, this new foundation category. So let's see if that looks good. Okay, so for if it's A1010, okay, it should have that. And under walls, I'm gonna have a 190 category now. Super. Okay, so we're looking good. So you're going to edit this table, and that becomes your master table that hopefully you could apply to all your different variations and permutations of the project, so that you don't have to, once you figure out what your unit cost basis is going to be, you can kind of just use that everywhere. Super. Okay, at this point, you're actually pretty good. You are set up and ready for action. So the next step in the whole process is really just to go through that inventory and assign these assembly codes to the different items. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like. I'm going to go to this thing that says GLK initial estimate. And let me kind of shrink you guys a little window so it's not blocking anything. Okay, we'll take a look. So for example, on those walls, let me play around with those walls first, because I was playing around with those. I know a little about their behavior. If I come down to the walls and I go to the EIF with some metal studs, okay, what we want to do is choose that, and we can look at all this. Now, there are a bunch of different individual ones. Okay, they're highlighted in blue over there right now. If those all want to have the same assembly code, okay, or if we want to subdivide it, we can. We can turn off individual ones if we want to, or select them all if we want to grab them all. But ultimately, we want to make sure everything ultimately is taken off somewhere. So over here in the palette of properties, let me show you how I got that. When the model is over here, right at the top, there's this little properties button that lets you sort of then see the properties. Okay, and I always have to find it because it sort of hides from me a little bit. It's not the model name, it's not the function, it's the assembly code. There it is right there. Okay, so I'm going to choose the assembly code. I'm going to go out and sort of find what assembly code I want to associate with all these things. And I guess it was an exterior enclosure. And I said those were going to be the 190, I decided. So super. So those down have something associated. Notice you don't see anything just yet. Okay, we're going to do something in a second that's going to make that happen, but we assume they all have that assembly code kind of associated with them now. I don't want to stay put here. Let me save those all. Okay, the part of actually going through and assigning the unit costs and computing the total cost happens by clicking this little estimate button. What that's going to do is it's going to find everything that has an assembly code and then update it. So there's two different things that are going to happen. Fill in the gap, or two different ways we can look at this. Fill in the gaps will take anything that has a blank in the unit cost right now. It has an assembly code, so it has some sort of cost data. And if it can find some new data to fill in there, it'll fill in the gaps. Okay, and that would be sufficient for what we're doing now. Yeah, if you wanted to start over from scratch, and that would be to read in those data values and even overwrite any values you might have changed because you made some manual changes, you'd say redo everything. Okay, but it'll warn you about that. In general, fill in the gaps is what you want to do, because what you're looking to do is just basically fill in the values that are missing. Okay, so you'll now see that all these items have the 120,000 associated, or 120 associated with them. Okay, all the quantities now are being multiplied, and we're getting a cost for that whole line item. Looks like oh, that's bathroom partitions. That's why that one's a little bit different. Super. So it's kind of hanging around there. That's not looking too bad. What I might do, again, just to sort of help you understand where you are in the process, is I might also go ahead and just put some sort of field in here just to keep track of these, like done. Just something so that you know, you've considered it. Yeah, you could just basically be looking for things that have blank values in there, but it might be helpful to kind of keep some sort of status field for things that you're feeling good about versus pending or kind of in process or something like that. But yeah, that's kind of optional. And then the other thing we might do to this view is in these columns, let me go ahead and I'm going to add in the assembly description. That'll just maybe help us confirm that we really did get the right one. So I'm going to put it right up there, right in front of unit cost. Okay. What that's going to do is, as we come on down, you'll sort of see that, what assembly description's matching with it. So you can kind of confirm that it's out of the table. So great. That data is actually stored. It's kind of looking fine. It's just going to keep on rolling forward. So at least in terms of everything we've done with the project right now, that data is taken care of in terms of what we know of the walls, and we're going to keep on just assigning other codes for more things. So I have some other ones in here. For example, I have some other metal studs, and if those might have a slightly different code to them. Oops, let me go back over here. All right. Swing too far, swung too far. I'll come back over here. These right now don't have an assembly code. These are these ones down at the first level. I can go ahead and give them an assembly code. So I'll come back over and say assembly code and just pull something out of this. Okay, I'm going to say those are those slightly cheaper ones. That actually, I haven't really figured out the difference between applying it here and like just saying estimate, because it ultimately has the same effect. So I'm going to come over here. Yeah, so still doesn't show up there yet until I say estimate, but oh, I know what it's complaining about right now. What it wants is, I've assigned the assembly code, but I haven't saved that. That's what it's complaining about there. Oh, looks like I did do it. Okay, so maybe that's it. If I do save things properly and I say apply that, what it's going to do is just for that line item I've just assigned, it'll apply it right at this time, as opposed to waiting to apply them by hitting the estimate. So that does look like a good thing to do, because then you would kind of see the feedback right away. So let me pause there for a second. Is that sort of making sense to people, or let me just get a reading from you guys about how that feels?
This is super cool. This helps a lot. Quick question. For my understanding is, when we make that tree and we export to Excel, we re-import, that applies to the entire project, right? So in this case, it would be the global AEC testing 2022. Yes. And if you have one model or 30 models in there, you can still get access to that one same tree.
Exactly. That same tree is available to all the projects. So then you, for all the different models independently within the project, it's on a project level. So yeah, perfect. If you have, again, the concrete one, the steel one, the double diamond versus the square, you can apply the same tree. So hopefully you guys are maintaining each your own single spreadsheet with the unit costs that are relevant to your area and the local technologies. And then you can apply them pretty easily across all those. And the good news is that even then, we should play around with this, the whole thing about the updating. I think the updating is really like, let's say, for example, we figured out that that wall type was now going to be $150 as opposed to $200. I think that would be a case where we would either want to reassign it or just do the redo, and it would reread all the values, as opposed to when we say estimate and we fill in the gaps, that just looks for the empty ones. Redo would basically be go back and reread the list all over again.
And Glenn, when you bring in a model to assemble, is that a living model that communicates with Autodesk Construction Cloud, or is it just a snapshot in time?
No, it
So
does.
it could
Let's
be-
go
okay.
ahead. Let's go. Let's experiment with it and see that. Actually, what I want to do, let's do those foundations. Let's just see if we were right on the estimate of that, and then we'll go, yeah, make some changes over and start over back in Revit and bring them across. Show you what that looks like. So here's my structural foundations. Those are the ones that, again, we were hoping to map to that cubic yards. Not you. I just want you. I guess that's everything, really. Okay. So let's go on over. So here we are. Oh, it's just a big slab down there right now. Cubic yard. Well, that'll work. Okay. Not realistic, but you get the idea. Okay, then we'll come back over here, assembly code. And we wanted to go through and I guess that was our substructure and our foundations and call it just this $80 per cubic yard thing. That's interesting. It didn't give me that same whatever. So I'm going to now say the estimate thing. Oh, you can see the mistake I continue to make. What I do is I don't save. Okay, now I'm going to try this over here. So it's 80. So it looks like it took my 172 by 80, that'd be about 13. Yeah, okay, so it is doing the right thing. So volume is a valid field. Okay, so as we go through and look for these, I think it's going to be these names: area, volume, perimeter. So ignore the units. I think that's just going to come out of how you set up the unit system.
I was just going to say, on your right hand side where you've got the properties and where it says quantity in there, in the just above unit cost, that's a drop down list.
Yes.
Yeah, as long as you select what you want to multiply your unit cost by, that's my understanding. Having been a user of Naviswork, it looks like it's very similar to Naviswork setup.
Oh, exactly. They're all sort of based on the same underlying code. So as long as you choose one of those values, and this is that thing, for example, on Windows, you could say, do I want the square footage of the windows, or I just want to do them as counts? Every estimator is a little bit different about how they do those things. So if you want to change the quantification metric, you can change it there. And then we just have to make sure that the cost breakdown structure assigns costs using that same metric. So yeah, change that around. Again, like railings, everything's a little bit different in terms of whether it's done by length or area or volume or whatever it is. Like, oh, I know when we were doing it in another class, it's like, for steel columns or something like that, you can think about whether you want to do it by the weight of the steel, computing the volume, or whether you want to just do it by counts or lengths. There's a number of ways you might think about that. Cool. Okay, so we got this basic mechanics down to doing this. Let's go back and kind of show you just really that next step of what happens, about this whole issue of this being a live model or not being a live model. And to do that, we'll do is go back over to Revit and start making some changes. So for example, here in Revit, if I want to go through and make some more of something, so I'm going to just kind of create some new things over here. Okay, so there's some new wall. It has the same family type as up here. Okay, but it's new. It didn't exist prior. Let's even kind of change something up here. So we've added some things, we changed some things. We deleted some things. Okay. At this point, as I sync, okay, at this point, Assemble won't know anything because syncing doesn't publish it. It again just kind of makes a local or kind of a update to the database for you guys to work with. Super. Where it starts to make the difference, though, is when you publish. Okay, so if I publish, in this way, you can decide when you want the designer's work to kind of prompt you to be changed. You can kind of control this. I'll say it's this one. I'll publish the latest version of that. Okay, so it's off there working. Let's go back over to Assemble. If you give Assemble a minute to kind of catch up, it'll figure out that things have changed. Oh, there we are. Let me go back out here. Okay. Here we are, we're back at the high level. You might say, hey, there's an updated version of the model available. What's that all about? So if you click on that, a new version was published. Score. Let's see what they're doing. Now, it does keep, versioning. So there's a version 3 available here now. Okay, saved just a few minutes ago. I'll bring that in. But we will be able to compare and go back to any specific version. So if you've already done a lot of work on version 1 and version 2, and then some new things got added in version 3, we can sort of see what's going on. Okay, it's going to do some processing, and it takes, again, a few minutes to kind of do its processing. What it's doing is we're going to bring in all the elements in that updated model, again, taking a few minutes to do that, and then it'll compare and figure out which of those are new elements or deleted elements or edited elements. So then it'll start classifying things. Okay, so as that's working, let's see if we have any some other questions we can answer as it's doing it, because I just want to let it kind of cook away for a second.
I've got one.
Yeah.
So on the construction cloud, notice that in the generic project files, you gave us like 6 tiles of aerial photographs.
Yes.
Is that somehow meant to be linked to our site 3D Revit model?
Yeah, that's actually available. If you want that site model to actually display the imagery, in addition to, right now it displays the roads and it displays the buildings, stuff like that, but they're all kind of gray. Okay, if you want to actually get the imagery in too, you can actually kind of pull that together. And let me kind of show you where you find what you need there.
And is that something that's then demonstrated on Iris VR as well?
I'm trying, it should pop its way through. It's visible in Revit, so I know it shows up in Enscape and tools like that. I think it would come into Iris also, but let's see if we can, what did I do? I think I put the instructions originally in Atlantic. Let me see where they are, hang on. Let me go over there. They're flat images, but they still give you a little bit of context there. And then let me come over here. Okay. For instructions, go to this file. How incredibly unhelpful. Global AEC site models. Oh, hang on, I want to go there. I'll show you. I'll get to it in a second here. Looks like something's updating. Just a second here. See if I can find the instructions for you. So you follow that link, it'll tell you a little about what's going on here. Hang on, I'll go back over to Bentopia, where'd it go? Then under global EC, what I got for you? There it is. So yeah, if you want to connect those in there, there's a couple steps here where you kind of connect your folder on the Autodesk Construction Cloud to your desktop. Then you create a link to it so it has basically like a Windows path name that works to it. And then what you can do is inside the Revit model, you can point them to those images. Let me tell you what's going on here. Ultimately, it's to have those images show up. It works pretty well in terms of what's going on, but it's image paths in Revit are tied to kind of absolute locations on people's disks. So we have to do this kind of trick to get each of your different disks to look like it has the same path to these files. So that's what all this is about. So if you're interested in that, like, just ping me at some point. We can walk through the steps for it. But it's actually, it's kind of cool if you want to do it. If you do it, it'll put those in the background, and yeah, they look nice because it just puts a little context behind the building.
The question really was driven from your email that you sent across saying like, don't rotate the site contextual model, but rather like rotate it as a linked file in the architectural model.
Yeah.
I did understand what you meant. It's just I couldn't get myself to attach the tiles, the aerial photographic tiles in the first place. Hence, I thought maybe it's just not worth investing time in.
Well, at some point when in all your spare time, which you don't have any if you have like 15 minutes, you want to look at it, we can. Basically, I'll show you what's going to happening. Like, you're Pacific, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me open up and I'll show you just real quickly how this works. Because that's about to finish up, but not quite yet. Okay. Change that over here to here. Let's get back over here to Pacific. There it is.
Yeah.
Is that the one, the original?
Yeah, that's the original one. That's untouched. We haven't done anything to that. The others, we've actually ended up rotating them to suit our site, Project North, but that's the original one, untouched.
Yeah. No, what'll happen is it's just the images don't rotate well is really what the issue is. You'll see in a second here that okay, so here they are. All those images are kind of on top. Okay, and so right now, doesn't look that bad. But if I rotate true north, the images don't align with the tiles anymore, because how it does it is if I look at all these, they have a material associated with them. Again, this is just stupid Revit stuff that, the way they've implemented here. It goes to an image file, which is out here, and the file is here, and then we point to it in a specific location. So that's the whole path. So I guess the difference is, if we do spend the time to do it, you'll end up with, just that little bit more, kind of greenery and contextual information.
Yeah.
But again, it's kind of cool stuff, but not necessary, but kind of fun to play with. Okay, let's come back over to here. I think this finally, it did get it done. Yay! Okay, so we'll say dismiss all that. You say, well, that's not very interesting. Doesn't look like much happened. Okay, but okay, see, the model looks different. That looks pretty cool. Okay, it's got things there, but you might say, well, okay, that's interesting, but what can we sort of learn from this? And this new button showed up, and that's the one you want to know about. This is the one, when I was doing estimating, I always wanted this button because I hated getting a new set of documents after I've already done a lot of quantity takeoff, because then you have to figure out what the differences are. So if you say show the differences, you can show the green things are the added things, the, what is it? The remove things, the quantity changed, the type changed. Yeah, it's showing all that stuff, or you can also show the original building in place too. But it'll just help you identify things. So again, that'll hopefully be useful to you in terms of understanding like the new things that you have to sort of apply the quantities to. Okay, let me go back and so even here for all these things. So for example, here are all these new walls. Oh, and even here you can sort of see it's telling you basically A is the new version, B is the old version, so what the variance is. So for example, on this category of walls with the metal studs, it went from 8,000 up to 12,000. Okay, so it increased by 4,000 square feet. So the idea is with that, yeah, can we now go through and change those and make sure they all have the new code associated with them? Okay, if I turn off that, it'll really just be those 4,000 square feet. The annoying thing over here is you don't see the assembly properties in there. And that I think is kind of annoying over there because you want to be able to kind of change it right here. And I haven't figured out a way to do that right offhand. Because I want to, well, what if I could do this? Let me put the assembly code in there and sort of see if it actually works. Nah, it's not giving me description in there. So yeah, this view is somewhat limited. I can't actually get to what I want to get to here. So then we say, okay, well, I see where the changes are. Super, that's all fine. Let me go back to the main one. And now I come back over here to where that is. Turn them all on. And you can start to, in here, sort of see what does and doesn't have something applied to it. Is that, yeah, I have some metal stud, pattern 1, pattern 2. It should be there. Oh, there's a lot here. They don't have the unit cost applied to it and all that kind of stuff. So super. So over here, in the same sense, we come over. We say the assembly code back over here. And get it to that 190 or whatever it's going to be. And I'll apply those just so it updates right away. Well, do I have to save them first? Well, let's save it. Now it's in that order. Well, there they are. Okay, so the idea is, the trick is really as things go through, you can find where the changes are. You got to go back in and basically find, you know, where the changes are here. And an easier way to do that, or a way that's kind of makes it sort of easier to spot or something like that, is what happens when there are changes or when there's things that look just a little bit different. Actually, I wiped it out right now. Or right here, there's something going on. This is trying to tell me that basically there's something unusual going on. It's making some comment on the width. So what's going on there? Somehow on those curtain wall double glass, there's something a little odd right there in the width that it's not even across everything. Oh, here's one. What's this one here? That's on the walls. What is it on this? Oh, they don't all have the same height. But that makes sense because that one's a little tall and it's kind of a little odd right now in terms of what's going on. So you can look for those, or yeah, the trick is really identifying things that have really changed. So still got to figure out the best way from that changed view to go through and have you identify it so you can kind of quickly change those things.
Glenn, might it be possible if you go into the show changes and select them and leave them selected as you go back to the other view, will it keep them selected?
I think you're onto something. Let's try something similar to that. Because I think as I'm saying all this and rattling on, I'm realizing, oh, I wonder what would happen if we just created a view that had those. So let's go to show the changes. Now that's okay, it's not that. So if we select them over here, basically. So the idea is if we do that and we go back here, that's not there.
Yeah.
Let me try another way to think about doing this. This might be another use of this funny, but so we're not getting the fields. Unit. I want basically a field that I can then like just kind of put something into that I could use later. Oh, actually, what was this? Is this? Oh, what's in here? Assemble properties, total cost.
What if you actually exported it as Excel, because you could, and then just add a value to it in your bigger spreadsheet? Could you?
I think that would work too. I think that would only gather these. So that I think would work. I'm trying to think of a way to kind of keep you in, like here, as opposed to having to do it that way. But no, well, let's all just gonna take this on in terms of, or yeah, I'll keep working on it and you guys keep working on it. We're gonna find a way. It knows how these work. It's either I want to be able to change them right here. Yeah, I wish I could right click on them or something like that and say they want to change them. Or I was thinking about whether we could save them as, a view or something like that. There's got to be some way to, kind of pull these out. But again, let me keep playing with that. And as soon as I find something, I'll send something to you guys because it's, it's available and we just haven't figured out what it is yet. Right? It's always that. So I think that we'll get to it. Okay, hang on. I get back to my little list over here. Update the model, show the changes, save view, look for multiple dice. Yep. Okay. Well, that's really at a high level the essential workflow. Okay. Short of this thing of how we can go through and kind of save just these things as a specific. I can take a snapshot. I can do all these funky little things. Set as a viewpoint. That's just a perspective. Just haven't quite figured out. Yeah, there's got to be some way of doing that. Well, let's try this. Open it in a new window. But again, that's all fine, but it's not giving me the properties. So no. I will fumble around. Oh, that's the inventory. That's just there. I'll fumble around with it. Someone solved this problem because it's such an obvious problem. It has to have a solution. We just haven't figured out, or we haven't stumbled across it yet. So as soon as I find something, I will post something for you guys to take a look at.
I did want to also ask where it says sheets. So the third option, inventory, 3D model, and then there's the sheets. Is that like a live? What is that for? Would you know?
Yeah, no, it's okay. You can actually publish sheets like sheet views if you're going to do 2D takeoffs as opposed to 3D takeoffs. So yeah, it has a whole nother model, republish those models and they will show up here. So, we don't have any sheets because if we go back to Revit over here, not yours, we didn't publish any sheets in these sets. So let me come back over here. So over here, if I go to the publish settings, okay, right now the only thing being published is the default 3D view because we haven't set a specific view. Okay, whereas if I put in here that I want to include not only the default 3D view, but I wanted to sort of include, actually in this model, I don't even have any sheets. Yeah, if I have some sheets that have some plan views because I want to sometimes people, you take something off that hasn't really been modeled in 3D, but you're just going to do it by tracing the area or, counting some 2D elements, detail items. Yeah, you can do that. So that's what that's all about. We just don't have any published yet. If you had some sheets, they would show up there. And then, there's a set of tools for doing takeoffs on 2D views as opposed to 3D views. That makes sense? So that's the only reason that's in there, is we just don't have any sheets just yet. Okay. Let me get you guys.
Glenn, I have another quick question.
What's that?
So is it possible to get Assemble to help us do like simple like calculations? Like for example, if I want steel quantities and weight, we can take like linear foot times a certain like weight category or something. Can Assemble, like, can we create a column, a custom column that does that?
Yeah, it's basically simple formulas. I'm
Right.
trying to think about whether it can, as you create a new column, or it's that whole thing of taking them out to Excel. Because, you know, the tail end for a lot of people, some people work right within here, other people over here. You know, it's this whole import from Excel or export to Excel. So you can kind of get it over there and kind of continue to do things. But I'm trying to think what I'm trying to remember now, because I've been thinking about this in terms of the unit cost table right now. Because it's, when we multiply those together, we just did it does simple mathematics, but in terms of creating a new column and a new field, it's funny. Again, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about a way to, you know, I look at too many different things. Hang on, let me see if I can go back over here. In this other thing, takeoff, you can, but let's see if it's has that ability here, because essentially you'd be creating a new property. Create a property. And it's just data tray. It doesn't seem like it has the simple formula language, you know, like you'd like to have in Excel or something like that. So again, let me do some research on that. And I'll see if I can come up with a better answer on that. But right now, I think it's more just the fields in there. So what you would do in that case is, yeah, either have to kind of essentially, you know, in the cost, factor in the fact that you were converting from volume to get to like the cost of the steel, and you'd have to kind of build that into the cost factor itself, you know, in that table. Or the other thing people do is they use this as a tool basically to just pop on out and they take it to Excel. So let me show you what that looks like. So we come back over here. We'll export to Excel. Include instances. I'm not going to do that. It's opening. Yeah, so it's giving you a big table with all this stuff, with the quantities, the lengths. We go down to where the walls are. So it's giving us the areas. Yeah, that's the other way to use this is basically just to take it to Excel and then go from there in terms of actually, you know, putting all that stuff together in there. But at this point, yeah, I don't see a way to kind of get a, you know, a good, kind of a formula language right within there. But I'll do some research on that for you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Oh, no worries. Okay, so let's go ahead then, and yeah, there's a couple of follow-up items. Working with you guys. Hang on, let me see if I can pull you up there. Up. Yeah, a couple follow-up items. So one is like seeing if we can kind of come up with a way that once you have the changes identified, you know, because we say show the changes, for you to kind of save that view or save those elements so you can assign the items to that more easily. Okay, so I'll look at that. And the other is really more this whole, you know, kind of formula language thing in terms of putting that together. Actually, Sean, I know you've been sort of playing around with this some on your own, you know, quite a bit. Have you seen anything about like a formula language or anything like that? Or I'm just trying to think, because I think you've been pushing this further, yeah, you know, pushing ahead with this. You seen anything like that yet?
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you.
One more time.
Formula? Sorry, I couldn't understand.
Oh,
What
I'm
formula?
just, yeah. Is it right now we have the ability, you sort of give it a quantity and you give it kind of an amount, it multiplies. Have you
Mhm.
seen anything where it's more like in Excel where we can actually set up a formula relating several different columns?
I have never done yet. So
Okay.
yeah.
No worries. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do some looking and see if we can find it.
Yeah, just I wanted to make cost breakdown structure. So like
One more time.
sorry, I don't understand.
Oh, no worries. No
Yeah.
worries. Okay. No, I was wondering whether you had some experience, but no worries. I'll do some looking. Okay. So
Yeah.
I got a couple of action items to follow up on. How about for the rest of you, you have a general sense of like how to pull in your first couple models, and if nothing else, it'll definitely pull out some quantities, and then yeah, that might be useful for some good back of the envelope stuff, just to understand what's going on. And then I think this whole issue of the update cycle and how to do that more efficiently, you know, that's going to come in, you know, very handy soon when the people start iterating on a specific model and keep pushing it forward. So so you can kind of keep on updating those things. Okay, cool. Well, let us then adjourn for today. Let you guys run and enjoy, you know, if you're in the US, enjoy a little bit of a holiday. I know that Stanford doesn't have classes today. Sadly, I think a lot of you still, the US universities don't tend to have classes today. Some of my friends in Europe around the world still have classes today. So good luck with all that. Okay, and it's really, as you dive into all this, if you have questions and all that stuff, again, just keep pinging me. That's actually really, really, you know, straightforward, and we'll try and set something up, you know, whatever. Just, yeah, we're all going to get through this together. Okay. Okay, very
Thank you
good.
so much,
Yeah.
Glenn. Take
You're
care.
welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care. Okay, bye-bye.
Have you got 5 minutes then, Glenn, just to run through the pictures? Because